welcome to another gorgeous day on earth and another day of Dose of Did You Know, where inspiring, unique, intriguing individuals talk heart and life and love and how it got them exactly to where they need to be today. And with me today is Nicole. Nicole, how are you?
I am fantastic. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am very excited to be here too. When Brian said you two need to connect, I'm like, okay, I trust you. You know, when you just have those people that you trust, you don't know why, you don't know, but he's one of them. And boy, did he have, he had it right. He had it right. We had to meet. But tell the world, I know a little bit about you. Tell the world a little bit about who Nicole is and why Brian was so adamant that we meet, because you did change his life. But who is Nicole?
So first and foremost, I'm a dog lover and I'm a mental health advocate. And so it was only natural at some point, and I know we talked before the show, I fought it, but it was only natural at some point that I would be down this path. I am now the executive director of Got Your Six Support Dogs. We are a 501c3 nonprofit located in Maryville, Illinois, but we always tell people it's more or less St. Louis because we're 15 minutes from the St. Louis Arch. We're Cardinals fans here.
And if you're not, don't take that against her. Come on now.
But we train and place PTSD service dogs with veterans and first responders. And in combination with receiving the service dogs, because we are such a big mental health advocate organization, all of our dogs come with a 2-week trauma resiliency program as well.
What is that?
So we know what research shows us is that PTSD service dogs work. There's a lot of argument. I know the VA studies are very skewed and biased, but we know Purdue University put out a research study that PTSD service dogs work, but they only work in conjunction with a therapeutic program. So this means, to kind of explain it, way back in the day, I used to train diabetic seizure alert dogs. And with a diabetic seizure alert dog, we would train them to alert to low blood sugar. Now, if they alert to somebody's low blood sugar, that's absolutely going to help them save their lives. But it's not going to save, if a dog alerts to me with low blood sugar, that alone is not going to save my life. I have to take the insulin. I have to drink my juice. That's the action that's going to save my life. PTSD service dogs, they alert to anxiety. That action alone is not going to help recovery. What's going to help recovery is knowing what to do exactly after the dog has alerted, or if the dog wakes you up from a night terror, what do I do next? And so it was important to us that we not only provide the dog, but we also provide the what next. And it's different for everybody. Sometimes it's meditation. Sometimes it's music therapy. We do aroma freedom technique. We do trauma yoga. So we give all these tools to everybody while they're here for the 2 weeks receiving their dogs. So they at least walk away with 1 or 2 things that absolutely work for them.
That makes total sense. And I never made that connection. Like, I understand it. Yeah, of course the dog's there and you have to have the action in your life to create any sort of change, right?
Right.
But I never, hearing it so simple, but I never put the two together. And how important is that? So if you're out there and you just have this dog, you need to take that next step somewhere.
Absolutely. And the research shows just giving somebody a dog, yes, I can pet my dog. Yes, I can get that serotonin boost, but it's not going to put me on the path to recovery. It's a combined, it's just like seeing a therapist and doing your homework. You've got to do the work along with getting the dog to see the results.
So smart. So smart. And Brian, I have to say, he's watching and he was already like, wah, 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 when we were talking about it. So Brian, you do make us laugh. I can't argue. If you know Brian, anybody, you know the giggles that come. But how did you come up with the name Got Your Six?
So I've been dog training. Next year will be 20 years. So I was a dog trainer during 9/11. And one of my first jobs was training narcotic dogs for the police military as a civilian. And so when 9/11 happened, and I'll kind of give you the backstory of how I even started Got Your Six. when 9/11 happened, we lost all of our government contracts for narcotic dogs because they then needed bomb dogs. So since our focus was narcotic dogs, we were basically out of a job. And so to keep us from being out of a job, the government offered all of the trainers a chance to go to Afghanistan. They offered us contracts to go and train dogs literally in Afghanistan. And now I'm going to tell you how old I am. I was 21 during 9/11. And as a 21-year-old, let's face it, you're very, very young at 21.
Yeah.
I think and it's hard to remember now, but I think we had about a week to decide. And I remember thinking at that time, it was more money than I'd ever even heard of. Like, oh my gosh, the money that they amounted. But at the same time, I was terrified. And this was at the time, and this was at the time when America was its most patriotic, and everybody, football players were joining the military. We all wanted to help, and I wanted to help. But at the end of the day, I was scared. It was just terrifying. I believe our servicemen and women, they have this warrior spirit. We all have different spirits. I don't have it. It was terrifying. I have a helping spirit. So it kind of weighed on me throughout the years. Like, I had this opportunity to help my country, to serve, and I passed it up because I wasn't brave enough. I was too scared. And so when I started to receive more phone calls from veterans and first responders looking for PTSD service dogs, I had this, I'm religious. And to me, it was God saying, this is your chance. This is actually what I wanted you to do all along, to serve your country, not the other thing. So that's basically how it was born and how it started.
Oh my gosh, I got chills because that's a very vulnerable story, because a lot of people might have not been so open to be like, yeah, I didn't go. I felt like crap. I was just too scared to go. They would have recreated the story to have some other, line in there. But
I have so much respect for the military, because and some of them younger than me, some of them 18, and were like, nope, I can do it. And I was never, but we're all different. And that's what I've come to realize. I just don't have that warrior spirit, but I'm just in awe of the people that do, and want to help them to the best, because that's my spirit. I'm the helper spirit. Yeah. So I think the world needs us all. We need the warriors and we need the helpers.
Oh, definitely. We can't have just all of one thing. We would be so crazy off balance. But I'm with you. I know I don't have that in me. I'm too scared. And so same thing. I can't even have words to represent my love and admiration for those that do.
Me too. Me too.
I'm like, it's one of those times where, yes, Coach Danny is actually speechless. It's just my heart. That's all I can give you, is like the purity of my heart for there. So I see that. And so God put you on this path. And I think you finally accepted his path. And now you've gone, it's blown up. It's kind of, I feel like maybe not even in your, like, it was never in your control to begin with, I think.
No.
But you finally got brave enough to say, okay, I'm doing this, and I'm listening to you now. What did that look like? Because you said you fought it for so long.
Yeah. So again, I started out training police military dogs. Then I trained service dogs, and I trained service dogs in diabetic seizure alert. I trained service dogs for mobility support. And then I did public obedience, basic obedience behavior modification. And I've done this for, it'll again be 20 years next year. And it was about 7 years ago now that I started, for my private company, getting phone calls from veterans and first responders looking for PTSD service dogs. And another embarrassing thing that I will admit is I was really skeptical when I heard PTSD service dog. It was a relatively new thing. And I'm like, what even is this? I train diabetic seizure alert dogs. That's, the ADA says a service dog has to perform a medical task. That's easy. Mobility support. The dog picks things up. The dog answers the telephone. The dog gets things. That's easy. what does a PTSD service dog do? To me, it sounded like, oh, you just want to be able to take your dog out and pet him in public. So I was really skeptical. And I didn't have the skill set for it at first either. So I would just kind of do a quick Google. I get these phone calls. I'm like, okay, we'll try this organization. They apparently do it, or this one, they do it. And then what would happen is these men and women would call me back and say, well, this organization has a 5-year waiting list, or this organization wants to charge me $20,000. And these are men and women on disability.
Yeah.
Or they want me to fundraise, this $20,000. And I remember the exact moment because I was working for another organization in Chicago, and I would have to go up there once a month to assist them with their dog training program. And it was my long drive back from Chicago to St. Louis. And I got that return phone call from a veteran, and they were saying, well, this organization wants to charge me the 20 grand. And I said, well, maybe you can Google, because I'm sorry. I don't do that. And she started bawling on the phone, just crying. And she goes, you don't understand. I have done everything. I go to the VA. I do the medication they prescribe me. I can't sleep. She's like, you don't understand. This is the dog is it for me. This is the last thing I haven't tried. This is my only hope. She goes, you're a dog trainer, aren't you? And I go, yeah. And she goes, well, why can't you help me? And it's like her words echoed in my head. I mean, like, why can't I? Why can't I? And there was no good answer for her. So the very next day, I had a long talk with my husband. I'm like, this is dumb. And he's like, he's my number one fan and my biggest supporter. And he's like, you do what you need to do. So I called my accountant the next day and I said, hey, Curtis, I want to file a 501c3. And he goes, Nicole, don't do it. He's like, I am an accountant and I am telling you, don't do it. It's too much work. You're going to struggle. You're going to burn out. You're going to fizzle. You're going to lose tons of money. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it. So I took $2,000 out of my own savings account, which is a lot of money for me as a dog trainer.
Yeah.
Because that's about what it costs to do all the registrations up front. And I did it, and it was meant to be, because we have grown as an organization 3,000% in 5 years.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? You fought so hard, your destiny, so hard. And then one statement just like penetrated you to the bone and was like, nope. And then you fought to actually do it. You fought it. You went from fighting against it to fighting for it in like a snap. And isn't that how kind of like, it's a perfect example of what this show is about, actually. How love and life and your actions, right? Because love is an action, your life is an action, creates exactly where you are right now, where you're sitting.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So now tell me a little bit about that growth process, because that is also very scary to grow like that and to be able to give so much. And then I also am curious about, how did you change your mindset and get your training to service PTSD? Because you were like, I don't know. I just thought it was a hoax at first.
Again, I'm religious, and I feel like I've gone through my life going to church and not really. I was one of those people, you hear people who says God spoke to me, and I'm like, yeah, God spoke to you, okay, but I believe in God, but yeah. But this was one of those things where God spoke to me, and all of a sudden there was this workshop advertised to me from another organization called Disable Veteran. And they're located in Carbondale, Illinois, which is about 2 hours away from us. And there is an amazing woman there, Bahesha Doan, who runs it. And they do PTSD service dogs for veterans with the trauma resiliency program. And her workshop was training dog trainers to train PTSD service dogs. And it was all about the trauma resiliency too. And she's amazing. She's training organizations all over the country to make them better and more effective. So we're actually saving lives. And going there was life-changing. She when I got there, I thought, I'm a dog trainer. She's going to teach me dog training. And she did. But she's also like, okay, we do a brutal trauma resiliency program for the veterans. We're going to put you through that. So I hope you're not afraid of just revealing your deepest, darkest trauma, because we're going to do that. I'm like, oh no.
What did I sign up for?
Not what I wanted. And it was one of those things. She said, if you are uncomfortable doing it, how do you expect people to open up their trauma for you? Or how can you experience growth? Or how can you ask people to do something that you're not willing to do? So I went through it. It was brutal, but amazing. I suffer. It's so interesting. I hope it's not a secret. You were talking about TBI.
No, it's not a secret.
I experienced TBI. I was an avid horseback rider and in a car accident. So I've had over 7 head concussions. And grew up as a trauma survivor, not military, but so with PTSD and TBI myself, there was a point in my life where I became so consumed with PTSD that I became agoraphobic, where I couldn't leave my house. Otherwise, I would just have massive panic attacks. And doing all the work, all the hard work, and going through that trauma resiliency, and then recovering to the point to where I'm functioning and loving life and just discovering what being happy and grateful is, I couldn't help not want to share that with everybody.
Right. Oh, I feel like that you again, you had another gift, just like as Brian wrote, God will provide what he sees fit to those that serve. That when you go through an experience and it changes you, and then you have that capability in your hands to give back, how dare you not do that?
Yes.
Like, holy moly, but that takes bravery, because it's very scary, because you have to talk about these things. You have to put your pain out there and to be able to do that. But you did, and then now you know exactly. And then hence the growth that has happened.
Yes. Yeah. We went from being rinky dink and placing 5 dogs a year to this year, we've doubled that to we're placing 10 dogs.
Wow.
We're placing them in September, and we hope to just keep doubling that number and expanding the programs that we offer. It sounds like 10, gosh, I would want to do 100, but it does cost us, like that number that was being thrown around to me in the beginning, that $20,000, it does cost us as an organization $20,000 to train and place a dog, combine it with all those programs. We cover the hotel and the food for the veterans and first responders when they're here too. So that's all in that price tag. So we have to fundraise for all of that, but we make sure that our veterans and first responders don't pay a cent of that. So that's why we're limited in the number. But as we continue to grow, but we have to grow carefully, because too much growth and we can collapse, because I want to make sure that we're doing this forever if I can help it, or until PTSD doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and you don't want to skip corners. Sometimes if we're not patient and we let, I think, our egos and kind of greed, that number take over, you start your value goes down, because you can't keep up. And so that takes a lot of patience.
It does. And we want to hold ourselves to the highest quality standard of service dog too. We hear nightmare stories from people who have gone by like a pop-up service dog organization that thinks that they're jumping on this cool trend. I can make some quick money and just throw a dog at somebody. And these dogs, some of them are aggressive and they're not trained. And we want to make sure that we're holding ourselves to the highest standards. And if you give somebody a poorly trained dog, you can actually make their PTSD worse. Yeah. And we're in the business to heal, not hurt.
Does that actually sometimes happen? I mean, it's kind of like dating, right? Mm-hmm. You think it's a good match, but then you're like, oh God, we are not compatible together, and you break up. Does that happen with the relationship you do your best, but you don't know. Has that ever happened? Or do you have what does that look like if that does happen to somebody? Because I can imagine I would, with my personality, be like, oh my God, it's me. It's not the dog, it's me. Like I'm doing something wrong.
For us, it was about when we initially, and I don't want to say this is the standard for all organizations, because some organizations are able to have a program where they can take a veteran's personal dog, or they'll give a veteran a brand new rescue dog, and they teach the veteran to train that dog to become a service dog, and they're very successful in that. For us, because we're very big on making sure that we make sure our donor dollars go the farthest. So we're always measuring our outcomes and our successes in our programs. For us, when we had a program like that, where the veterans trained their own dogs, or they trained a rescue dog, we had an 80% failure rate, which is why we abandoned that program. And the reason being, and as a dog trainer, I know this, but it was just such a beautiful thought. Let's rescue a dog and rescue a person. And we still rescue dogs, but we do all the training ourselves for that year and then place the dog. Because what we found is that the anxiety, we have a saying in dog training that emotions go down the leash, or feelings go down the leash. The leash is just a connector from my feelings into my dog. And what we were seeing is that a lot of that anxiety that the veteran and first responder was experiencing would go down into the leash and into the dog, and that they were training anxious dogs. So we were having a lot of failure rates with those dogs because they were becoming very anxious and having a lot of anxiety. So to make it successful and to make the matches work, we now train the dogs to completion. So they're solid and they're stable, and then they're able to do the work that they are supposed to do.
That makes sense. And wow, it takes a whole year.
Yes. Yeah. We're accredited through the Association of Service Dog Providers for Military Veterans, and they require, one of the accrediting factors is they require 350 hours of training on each dog. So we make sure that we get that and then some, so that we don't have to worry about the performance of our dogs.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can talk to you forever.
I could too.
Because after these credits are done, don't hang up, because I got to talk to you off air for a second here. I forgot to tell you that before, and I think that's very important for me. My last question is, in this moment right now, I ask you to answer to the purest, no matter how silly it might sound to you. What does love mean to you, Nicole?
Oh gosh, love is gratitude, and love is a dog. Before I let you go, I have to show you this one thing. I have a service dog with me. He's just chilling somewhere in here, and he was doing great, but we had to remove him from the program because he's 4 years old and he ended up getting arthritis in his elbow. But the love, what he's trained to do, one of the things that I'm going to show you, I'm going to get upset here and just kind of show you what he does.
Okay.
And there we go. So this is love.
That is a perfect example.
Good boy.
Yeah. And Brian wanted me to share that this, and I saw the pictures, that the dogs are able to travel to Alaska and back. That was very cool to see that process for him. And what is that guy's name, or girl?
This is Recon.
Recon.
Yeah. And he was a rescue shepherd that we put in our program, but unfortunately his arthritis kept him out of it, but he loves to work so much we couldn't help but make him our spokes dog.
Yes. Now I have a question from that in itself, is that when something like that happens, do you place them in just a family home, or what happens to those dogs?
Yeah,
that don't make it through the program because arthritis or something?
If we do adopt out dogs, they go for the people that have priority are veterans and first responders, or services serving them. We have one dog that is in a whole health program at the VA, so that when people go to get their whole health treatment, they've got a therapy dog there. So they can become therapy dogs, or emotional support animals aren't allowed public access, so they're not allowed to go out in public. But if we have a dog that does really great, but maybe he's nervous being out in public, we'll adopt them out as an emotional support animal to somebody who's suffering enough PTSD that they can use the comfort at home, but don't necessarily need the dog to go out and about with them in public.
Okay. That totally makes sense. And Char, that is the most awesome thing ever. Great work. Really is very cool to see it firsthand. You hear it, but conceptually, like seeing it puts it in a whole other dimension. So
yeah, now he's figured out I was faking. So he went back to take a nap.
It's like, yeah, you suck right now. Woke me up for nothing. It's very important, Recon. You had a very important job. Oh, thank you, Nicole, so much for sharing your heart and your soul and how love and life got you exactly to where you were supposed to be in fulfilling your purpose. Thank you very much. And to everybody else out there, remember to love hard, love true, and love proactive. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.